And if you can shorten the learning curve and make fewer mistakes, that is tremendous. I see much value in that. So that enabled me to get comfortable with syndications.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you're enjoying the show, I need a little favor from you. Just leave us a rating and review. That helps more investors find this podcast. It also gives us some feedback to help us work harder for your investing goals. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. We've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Schieler. Schieler is a real estate investor local to the Indianapolis area. Now, he began his REI career after working 17 years in the electronic payments industry. Now, he has been investing since early 2020, and today Chad is a GP on 139 units and an LP on over 900 units. Let's welcome to the show, Chad Schieler.
Thanks, John. Glad to be on here.
Absolutely. Chad, it's great to talk to you, and I would love for you to take 2 minutes and fill in some of the gaps in your background.
Yeah, thanks, John. So like you mentioned, I spent most of my adult career in the electronic payments industry, doing sales, running that business, helping out small business owners. And about 5 years ago, went through a personal growth period where I wanted to grow more and better myself, better my skill sets. That's where things really took off. Read some books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, other great books by Jim Collins, Good to Great. And that just made me really realize there was more out there than my sales job that I had. And that's when I started looking at the real estate investing. Took me a few years to really find my first property, but after analyzing many of those, I finally found my first property, and that's when it just started exploding. That's when I was hooked, I was addicted, and that's where we're at today, 2.5 years later now.
I love it, man. I love it. So you spent 17 years in the electronics payments industry. About 5 years ago, you started this journey on personal growth and development. Real estate became the thing that really grabbed your attention, and that's kind of your focus today.
Yep.
Was there something that sparked that journey, that exploration 5 years ago that made you say, you know what, I need to be doing something different?
Yeah, I think for me, man, it was just taking control of my financial future for my wife and my daughter and our family, and not letting my financial future be in the hands of somebody else. And the older we get, I think even after my daughter was born a few years ago, I'm like, wow, I got to be a provider now. I'm a man of the house. It's a lot more weight on your shoulders, right? More responsibility. And I realized I'm not going to let somebody else dictate, um, my, 10 years from now, my success, my ability to have security for my family's income. I looked at real estate as a way to build passively over time. It's a real tangible asset. And it was a way for me to create my own income stream with no limit at all. And really, it was only my income would be dependent on my ability to grow and find people around me that were like-minded. So that's why I chose that. I think the books really hit it hard, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, that just like clicked instantly. It showed how easy it would be. I shouldn't say easy, it's simple. It's not hard. It's not rocket science, right? Anyone can do it. It's just you gotta find the path, find the right people to put around yourselves to make it happen.
You mentioned it being simple, and conceptually it is simple, but it's so difficult for someone to get out of that mindset of what we're taught, right? About go to college, get a good job, work that job. Maybe you have some little investments on the side, right? But you basically work that job and that career until you retire. When
Yeah.
you get into that mentality of taking back control, that means getting off the hamster wheel. How were you able to kind of break that cycle and say, you know what, this isn't the life for me. I want to create something different. Especially, I'm assuming, if you were good enough to to do what you were doing for 17 years, I'm sure you were making pretty good money. So for some folks to kind of
Wasn't
leave
bad.
off of that, yeah, to get off of that is a challenge as well. So just talk to us about kind of taking that concept that was a simple concept, but the actual execution and implementation of it being much harder. Talk to us about that.
So a couple of things there. Hamster wheel, term I use quite a bit. I'll get back here in a minute. But in all transparency, I still own the business today. I still have it, but I use people now, a local team, to run the day-to-day actions, which gives me my time back to put into real estate. So I've got kind of luxury of both worlds there, but it's something I built and created over 17 years. The hamster wheel. So during COVID, that's what kind of clicked. COVID gave me a chance over 6 weeks during quarantine to really take a step back and not have my blinders on. When you're focused with in the corporate world or sales world, I feel like they have you just going so fast to where you've got blinders on. You can't see anything else besides your path you're on, the path they want you to be on. And I hate to call it like that, but it might be called golden handcuffs or hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm.
But COVID helped me take a step back, do some more personal growth. That's when I realized, wait a second, I could start something here in my spare time. So for 2 years, John, I would be listening to podcast upon podcast, books. Probably have 1,000 hours of podcasts in a couple of years under my belt. My wife would get so annoyed in the car, be on podcasts. She's like, bigger pockets again. Yes, it is. So I just found a little spare time here and there to build myself up and improve my knowledge, getting coffee with guys that are smarter than me, lunch with people. So for 2 years, it was a grind of learning. It was a lot of research, a lot of just trying to learn the whole process. Um, that's how it went, man. So it was a lot of work at first to get out the hamster wheel, but once I brought the person on board to help with my current team, that's when I had my time back to put more into real estate. But for a while, I was doing both jobs. There's a lot.
I think there's two really big insights there, right? One is you continue to feed yourself this information, and there's lots of different books that talk about this in different ways, but Atomic Habits is one, and the point of that book is you're either making an investment or a deposit that you're becoming the person you want to be, or you're not. And if
Yep.
you want to be an investor, if you want to have your time flexibility, you're either doing things that make you closer to that goal or get you on track to do that or to become that person, or you're not. And to your point about listening to podcasts, I think that's really important. I mean, listen, obviously the folks listen to this conversation, they should get it. But my point is, give yourself credit. You're putting in the work. This may not be buying properties or whatever, but listening to podcasts is a great way to start that foundation. You've got to build the foundation where you are rock solid. You know this is what the path you want to be on. This, this is what you want to do. And reading the books, the podcast, training your mind, letting the people around you know that, hey, this is what I'm investing in. This is what I'm going to focus on. That sets you up to take that next big step. And without that rock solid foundation, it's easy to get pushed back when things get busy or work picks up or you got a sick kid
Yep.
or whatever it is. And you've got to have that foundation that this is important. It's also critical and it's urgent itself. So I'm going to invest my time and energy into getting better at this. The second thing you said, though, was about trying to create more flexibility with what you already have, being able to outsource some of the work, hire employees. And maybe, for someone listening, you can't hire employees, but there may be things in your life that take up a lot of your time that you can't outsource. Even something as simple as like grocery shopping. If you can go out there and use one of those apps and, pick your groceries, let somebody else go do the shopping and bring it to you, if that saves you 30, 45, 60 minutes, that's 35, 45, 60 minutes you can now reinvest in your own education. So it's one of the things where you have to stop, acknowledge, one, that this is important to you, but then two, how can you free up time for this thing that's important? And you were able to do that. So congratulations on that step. Once you kind of got this education, was there a moment where you said, okay, I'm ready? And if so, what did that look like?
Yeah. So I would say I always knew that I was ready to invest in real estate. And there was times in that 2, 3 year period where I was researching and looking for properties where I kind of wanted to give up. And honestly, I took a pause for several points in time. And I was in my camera roll the other day looking at pictures. In 2017, I had a picture of some duplex I looked at. I'm like, wow, it's been that long since I've been looking at properties. But I didn't get my first property until 2020. So it took like 3 years looking at properties. And I think I had some pauses in there, but I think what clicked is, okay, so my first deal was a fourplex, and I literally bought it sight unseen. I paid 10K too much for it. It was fully vacant, never got an inspection, all the red flags, right? But I knew I had to get started, and I was willing to pay extra to get that experience. Looking back, I wouldn't change a thing about that at all. I'd do it all over again because getting your first deal is so important. But yeah, there was times where I wanted to give up, but I knew that real estate was such a not only lucrative, but it's also just a rewarding career. So I knew it was the path I wanted to be on.
I love that because you've got to be taking the steps, even to that point, adding what we just said. you were doing it, right? You were looking at deals, you were analyzing opportunities, and you realized by 2020, after 3 years or 2.5 years of looking at deals, you realize we just got to get the first one.
Yep.
That first deal is so
Oh, the
critical
first
because
deal.
now you're a real estate investor. And going back to that thing with atomic habits, like you got to become this person. So once you buy a piece of property, now you're a real estate investor. And now you can ask yourself, well, what would a real estate investor do? Well, a real estate investor would analyze deals. A real estate investor would make offers. A real estate investor would talk to potential investors, right? So
Yep.
now you're operating with this mindset and you're becoming the person you actually want to be. I absolutely love that. And I think it's so key and vital, especially for folks who are maybe feeling like a little bit of imposter syndrome or getting burnt out, or to your point, you want to take a break. There's nothing wrong with taking a little pause and reassessing because maybe you need to change your strategy or, make some adjustments, but the goal doesn't change. If this is important to you, if this is what's going to help you reach your financial goals and change your financial future, you got to figure out a way to make it happen. And I'm glad that you were able to do
Yep.
that.
Yep. Thank
Talk
you.
to us about the next deal, right? So you got that 4 unit. At what point did you start to scale up and start work with other investors?
So it was my belief at first that I wanted to do a few deals on my own with my own money to make my own mistakes first. I just had a hesitation about calling investors or calling friends and family to invest in my deals. I wanted to prove it out with my own money first. I knew I'd make mistakes. I knew I would, but I prefer to use my own capital opposed to other people's capital to make those mistakes with. It took a little while to find my second deal. I again hit a little stopping point between my 4 unit and the next 15 unit deal. But what I kept doing was networking. And I had an old friend that we just reconnected with. He was actually a client of mine and friend of mine from like 4 years back. And we started talking about real estate. And he was at a point in his life where he wanted to go help people find their first deal, broker some deals. He found an off market deal for me. So we actually did a JV on that partner to get on that deal together. It was a 15 unit deal. A lot of lessons learned there as well. So that was my next one. It's about 9 months later.
All right, so 9 months later, you find that next deal. You JV on this deal,
Yep.
and that one you're able to again starting to work with other people. You're partnering on this deal. Talk to me about kind of the growth where you get focused capital.
So first two deals, I did another 20 on my own, did a 25 unit JV. Then I joined a mentoring program, and that's when things clicked. That's when I started paying for mentors, paying for coaches, and that accelerated my learning curve. And if you can shorten the learning curve and make fewer mistakes, that is tremendous. I see much value in that. So that enabled me to get comfortable with syndications, raising capital from other investors. I hadn't done that yet. I'd only done deals myself and deals with a couple of different partners. And after that, I joined the program 5 months later, did my first syndication, $3 million deal, did one more a couple months later. So that was 6 deals overall that I did. And in between that, I sold my first full fourplex, did a 1031 exchange into the 25 unit deal to for all the taxes, like playbook examples. That was a really good exercise there.
Yeah, man. Listen, great insights. First of all, I love that you said something that reminds me when I was starting out, right? You wanted to make your own mistakes, with your money, and you did that with your deals. JV found another partner who was willing to take the same kind of risk, recognizing all of it. They were in the space, did some deals with them. But after that 25 unit deal, that's when you decided to go out and pay for mentorship.
Yep.
And I love that because I think sometimes people either they feel like, well, I don't need a mentor, I don't need a coach, I can figure this out by myself. What I need you for, and that's listen, there might be a chance that you can figure it out for yourself. But the greatest performers in the world, whether it be in the business world, athletics, music, they all have coaches.
They all do.
The
Yep.
the coach isn't there to teach you how to do something. You can learn that part. The coach is there to help you reach your potential.
Yep.
And I tell people mentors are not magicians. If you're not going to put in the work, if you're not serious about this, then you're not going to get the results. But if you're willing to put in the work, you can align yourself with people who can help you see success faster and shorten that learning curve. And I think that's really important that you built up a pretty respectable portfolio. I mean, you mentioned a 4 unit, a 15, a 20 unit. That's a pretty respectable portfolio where I think many investors would say, I'm just going to keep doing this. You went and got a coach. And then what was the next deal kind of after you got that coach? You mentioned $3 million deal, but like how many units was that one?
It was 67 unit deal. It was at a discount, been on the market for 6 months. They had it for $3.6 million. We closed at $3 million. It was a $1.3 million raise. I had my same two partners as GPs on the deal with me. I was the lead sponsor, but they took care of raising part of the capital or most of the capital. I did all the due diligence, total closing process, and then that now one partner asset manages the deal today. It's going pretty well. It's going on plan. Actually, ahead of track right now. But I formed Focus Capital after that deal. I learned more about myself through some personality tests I took, some just learn more about how I operate, how I want to work. I think partners are really crucial to real estate. I learned that I think I learned work a little bit better having a local team here, building out
Mm-hmm.
my own capital company. And I also realized that I had really kind of sold myself short by not raising capital on my own, really ever. I never did. I raised $100,000 of that one deal. My partners did all the rest. And I realized after talking to my friends and family that I think people really believed in me. They wanted to get involved, and we had an opportunity to invest in deals that aren't available publicly. And you're actually doing people a favor by helping them see these investment opportunities. So since then, I've taken a more active role now in capital raise, and then outsource other things regarding real estate.
What do you think was the biggest shift for you to make that realization?
Okay, two things. I know every deal is not perfect that you do. We had a shortfall in capital on that syndication, so I had to bring some money to the table myself as a personal loan. So that was a little sting, right? But we found the capital. We got it replenished. It was fine. I was made whole. But that made me realize, okay, I've got a big network. I kind of took a step back. I'm like, I have all these friends and family. I've got people that are already in real estate. I have people that are investors. I'm like, let me just do a deal, do a small deal. Let me test my market, see kind of what my interest is. So I did a small deal with a broker I hadn't worked with yet. So it was kind of a dual full purpose to actually be a buyer with them to develop a track record, right? A small deal. It's an awesome market. So there's number two benefit. And number three, I decided, let me do a small little raise. Let me see what happens. I made 7 phone calls and raised all the money from four investors. I mean, it was so simple. I'm like, wow, all right, I should be a capital raiser, not the guy who's doing due diligence and underwriting.
Yeah, listen, I think that's really important to understand. Like, one, you may have skills that you don't fully recognize right away, and sometimes you have to hit a little bit of a pain point, right? You run that pain point where you didn't raise the money you were looking for, so you made a personal loan to get that deal done, and say, you know what, I have people, I have connections. Let me try this a little bit harder next time, and you did that on a smaller deal. Seven
Yeah.
phone calls later, you raise all the capital you needed. What do you think what do you think you did that made those individuals want to invest with you after just 7 phone calls?
I mean, they already knew me. They already liked me, I think, and trusted me. There's people in my circle of influence. I mean,
I
you know,
would
the trust,
I'm
right?
pretty sure they liked you if they wrote a check, man. If they're like, I
Yeah.
hate this dude, but I'm sure he's gonna make money for me.
No, I think my personality, I'm not really a, ready, fire, aim kind of guy. I'm
Yeah.
I'm very analytical. I overanalyze everything. Drives my wife crazy. But I took that into real estate, so I'm ultra conservative, and that could hurt us sometimes, right? Not getting some deals, but it also will protect us from risk and shortfalls. So I think that the value add I brought when I was underwriting deals was that I was really conservative, and I had different layers of buffer put in place to where if this goes wrong, we still have this covered. I had sensitivity tables built into there to where we knew even if the vacancy was higher, even if the cap rate was 50 points lower at sale, and even if interest rates rose during our closing process, we're still going to hit our returns. So I think they believed in my abilities to underwrite properly and be analytical. I think they believed in my ability to execute and deliver the returns and grow the property's NOI. So I think just knowing me and trusting that I would do that was
So,
key.
I mean, we hear it all the time, right? People will invest with you if they know, like, and trust you. I would say they also need to know, like, and trust you in that field. And in this case, they probably saw that you were investing. You again, we talked about it. You bought a 4 unit, 15 unit, 20 unit. That's 67 units. So you were starting to acquire these properties. They're seeing what you're doing. They see how successful you are in business, and they want a piece of it. So as you start talking to them, it's not just about you, it's how they can benefit. And it's an opportunity for them to invest and make a better return on their money. It doesn't hurt if the stock market is going haywire and they're looking for a place to put their capital. So all those things got to come into play. But I think the insight is focus on building those relationships. They have to know that they can invest with you, though. I'm
Yep.
sure, well, I should say this. It sounds like you weren't focused on capital raising before. Do you think if you called those people when you had that shortfall in the capital raise, if you called them, do you think any of them would have invested? Not all of them necessarily, but do you think any of them would have invested?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there you go, right? I mean, part of it is you've got to reach out. I mean, people aren't mind readers, so if they don't know
No.
there's an opportunity to invest with you, they won't, right? You got to make those phone calls, you got to send those emails, you got to reach out, you got to, build, encourage, and engage your network, and that's all part of the process there.
It's,
Talk to us. Go ahead.
no, I think the sooner that you let your network know that you're doing real estate is better. Time is on your side, and it could be against you as well. If you wait, and you say, "Oh, well, I'm just going to get a couple deals on my own, like I did, and then I'll start capital raising." Well, you've just lost 2 years of people knowing you're in real estate. So now you get it. Now they have to start to understand and get acclimated to what you're doing, see how progress goes, and then that clock starts. Then start it right now and let them watch you as you're growing and learning. That's the advice I would give to somebody else.
And Chad, I love that advice. And the little nuance I'll add on that is you don't have to go into those conversations asking for anything. So if you're going to start and do it by yourself, I mean, they call it building in public, but that's all you need to do is just let people know you're doing it. You don't have to say, hey, do you want to
Don't
invest with me in the
follow.
future or anything like that? You can just start by showing them. If you're looking at properties, grab your camera, take a little video. Hey, I'm checking out this 4 unit property. Here's what I'm looking at. Here's what the numbers look like, whatever, right? But just sharing some of that information, people see it. And then you'll start to get some people who are reaching out. And then when you are ready, they're going to already know that you were doing real estate because they've been watching your videos for the last 2 years,
Won't be a
right?
surprise. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a surprise when you call me and I'm like, oh, I thought you were in electronic payments. What do you mean you're real estate
Yeah.
investing now? Right?
Yep.
It's a
Yep.
big jump. Chad, what
Yeah.
other tips and advice would you give for people who are looking to make that transition?
It goes back to, I think, coaching and education. I can't speak enough about how important it is to educate yourself. I think honestly the best investment you can make is in yourself. No better investment. Like the amount of information you can learn and books and podcasts and mentors and coffees. I mean, go take old guys out to lunch, breakfast. Learn from them. Ask them, what would you do if you or your 40-year-old self today or 20-year-old self today? Get their advice. I've learned that it's not really what you don't know that can hurt you. It's what you don't know that you don't know. There's a big gap there, right? So get a coach, get onto a program and shorten that learning curve. Learn from the mistakes of others that they've already made so you won't make them yourself.
And Chad, I know you've done some LP investments as well. Talk to us about kind of your approach investing as an LP, especially since you were kind of doing some stuff on your own as well.
Yeah, so that goes back to 2018, actually. I had a buddy who was doing new development. This was during my research phase, and they wanted to raise some capital. And honestly, it was my wife's friend at the time, my wife's friend's husband. And he approached me. He's like, "Hey, we're doing this deal. Here's the return. It's pretty simple. It's a year and a half hold or so. Do you want to invest?" And I wrote a few checks. And one of those deals has sold since then. Two are still in cycle. So that was my first experience as being an LP. And then my wealth management company, they've got an alternative investment division, and I've been able to latch onto that, which has been pretty cool. Not only to reap the rewards of great returns there as the LP, but also see how the big players do these deals. That's been pretty cool too.
Yeah. I think, again, more insights. Just as you're ramping up, you've got to continue to invest in that belief that I'm an investor. And even as you started off really as an LP, right? As you did the education, the podcast, looking for properties yourself, pulling the trigger on some passive investment opportunities, seeing what these other operators are doing, learning from that experience. And then as you kind of shift it over, continue to build your own personal portfolio. and then finally making that transition to partner with other people and raise capital for these deals. Just filled with insights on how to continue to grow and scale. For folks who want to learn more, they can check out your website, investfocused.com. That's investfocused.com. We're going to go to a round of insights. Chad, give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for greater success.
Man, there's a lot, but I would say probably the biggest one was we had a contractor at the 15-unit property there, my second deal, and we didn't have a written agreement. Number one, we did not establish, fair inspections every so often for pay draws to release only a small amount of funds, then re-inspect, re-release funds, and we released too much funds at first, and ultimately the work didn't get done. We lost $40,000 to that one guy. We had to find somebody else, have people come in and redo the work. So I would say the number one thing I learned there is no matter if it's your friend or not, which he was actually a friend of my partner's, you need to get a contract with this contractor. You have to have it written down, have an agreement, have a schedule of payments, schedule of inspections, and a rescope on work.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Podcasts are great. That's where I resource a lot of information. LinkedIn is full of great people on there, wealth of knowledge. And you stumped me there. Sorry, there's a lot.
That was good. All right, give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Who, Not How, by Dan Sullivan. That one totally turned my mind as far as looking at how I can find better people in my life to scale the business.
What's a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals?
I start every morning kind of the same way. I have me time for about an hour. I get my coffee, I go for a walk or do exercise, personal growth, podcast or audiobook in. I start my day my way, and then I do the rest of my day, my work day.
All right, give me your number one insight for multifamily investing.
Number one insight, it's not an I sport, team sport.
There you go. All right, man, you are in Indianapolis. Let's lighten the mood, man, and give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
I like 1933 Lounge in Fishers. That's my wife and I's go-to spot.
All right, I have not been there. I travel enough through Indianapolis and to Indianapolis, but I have not been there. And I think you're the second person that has mentioned that spot, so I'll definitely make sure it's on the list next time I get there. Yeah. Well, listen, Chad, you gave us a lot of great information. I really enjoyed hearing kind of your perspective of, having this full-time career, realizing that you didn't really control all of your time, and with your young daughter, you wanted to get more control going on, getting into real estate, first through education, second, kind of through some of these passive opportunities, and then being more hands-on, building up your own portfolio before working with other investors. I think the key takeaway there is just you got to continue to invest in yourself to become the person you want to be, as well as tell people what it is that you're doing. If you want people to invest with you, you got to let them know, and if you build that relationship, you're going to be able to have more success than trying to just build it quietly in the darks by yourself. So it's a team sport. People got to know that they have a chance to be on your team and you can add value and help them with their goals. Again, if anybody wants to learn more, they can check out your website, investfocused.com. Chad, thanks again for being a great guest. We look forward to staying in touch with you. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, John.